Number 2 is when a man enters his penis in the vagina of a woman or her anus or the anus of another man, whether sperm is ejaculated or not. And the ghusl in these cases is fard upon both the perpetrator and the one who is penetrated.
Okay, so last time the point he read was nocturnal emission, which is when someone is sleeping and when he wakes up he finds wetness, which could have been semen, so has to do ghusl. And with it I explained a lot more things which we what makes ghusl wajib. When it comes to meeting of the private parts, the male private organ, like the penis has two parts, the top part, the head of the penis, if that actually enters enough into the woman's farj, so it disappears, that much ghusl is wajib. Ghusl becomes wajib on a person whether after that he continues or doesn't continue, whether he ejaculates or doesn't ejaculate, whether something comes out, emits or no emission, it doesn't matter. When just being closed in by body, that doesn't make ghusl wajib. What makes wajib is actually the penetration, and enough penetration for the head or glands, that's the right name, yes. If that disappears, or then that makes ghusl wajib or fard. Now they mentioned a lot of other things as well. It is completely haram. It is absolutely haram for a man to approach his wife from what's called dubur, the back passage, the anus. It's completely haram. But fuqaha, they mention it because even if someone did the haram, he will be sinful and he will need to repent. But is ghusl wajib? They agree that ghusl is wajib in that case. I think all of them actually agree that it is wajib in that case. And it would be a great sin. When a man goes to a woman in that way, where the two private parts meet, and that is penetration, which makes the ghusl wajib, the man and woman are now called junub. They are called junub. That's the right word for someone. If someone has ghusl wajib on them, it can be for many reasons. Many reasons. One can be, for example, a woman, she just had her menstruations. When she goes through it and when menstruations finish, ghusl is wajib on her. Post-birth bleeding, when that stops, ghusl is wajib. Like we say, a wet dream, ghusl is wajib. Having intercourse, that person is called junub. So, and that state is called the state of janaba. The junub is the person who has attained that state of janaba through sexual intercourse. In the beginning of Islam, the early days of Islam, the ghusl was not wajib. There is a hadith in Bukhari, al-ma'u min al-ma', water from water. Now what happened in the early days of Islam, the ghusl was not wajib unless someone actually in having the intercourse, sexual intercourse, they actually ejaculated or emitted, semen. If that didn't happen, just leaving it halfway, they would have only have done wudu. So that hadith, by ijma', by understanding of everyone in Islam, that hadith is mansukh, meaning this rule has been cancelled or abrogated by another ruling, which is hadith, which is even though the other hadith is authentic, this is not the place, this is not hadith class, but that's why it's very important to know, if someone picks up a hadith, to know if this hadith has had another hadith replacing it. That's very important. Anyway, so the other hadith, which is from Ubay bin Ka'ab, he said, he's in Abu Dawood and Ahmad, He said, الماء من الماء رخصة it was a رخصة كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم رخص بها في أول الإسلام ثم أمرنا بالاغتسال بعدها. And he explained this hadith, the people who say الماء من الماء, this was something which we were allowed in the earlier days in Islam, and then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam ordered us to do ghusl. In other words, he told us it's compulsory to do ghusl. Ghusl means to wash all the body. We'll cover that in the middle, in the middle of the lesson or the next part of the lesson. Also, we have another hadith, which is authentic hadith, which tells us that you don't actually need the emission of semen in order for ghusl to be obligatory. Reason being, there's a hadith, authentic hadith, which says, and that's a muttafaqun alayh hadith, meaning Bukhari and Muslim both have mentioned it. إذا جلس, the part we are interested in, إذا جلس بين شعبها الأربع ثم جهدها فقد وجب الغسل. Meaning, if a person sits between her legs and penetrates, the ghusl is obligatory. So the penetration, meaning the entering of the private part into private part, that is sufficient for ghusl to be obligation. Now, if you remember last week, we had said, if if the intercourse wasn't the case, emission of semen is what causes ghusl wajib. Do you remember that? If we put the intercourse aside, in normal case, if someone was playing with his wife and he had emission, now there are four madhahib, I told you. Imam Shafi'i, when we are not talking about an intercourse, Imam Shafi'i said emergence of semen, regardless whether he was feeling, it was in a lustful way or in any way, the emergence of it, whether he liked it, disliked it, whatever the reason, it will make ghusl wajib. But others, they said it has to be in a lustful way. And Imam Abu Hanifa, he added another bit. They said it must be in a lustful way and it must ejaculate, meaning with some force behind it. So we covered that last time. Now we are covering an intercourse, whether he ejaculates or not. That is something completely different. To go near his wife, and penetration would cause, and I explained at the beginning how much of the penetration. The other things they mention about anus or homosexuality, they are major crimes in Islam. In the Sharia, they are major crimes. The ghusl will be wajib and tawbah will be wajib as well. If someone did that, not considering it haram, he actually becomes kafir. If someone considered it okay to use the back passage for penetration, he would actually become kafir if he doesn't think it's haram. If he thinks it's haram and he does it, he will be sinful, a major sin. But if he took it lightly and he think no, it's not haram, he actually the nikah with his wife will break, because he would have left the Islam the moment he doesn't consider it haram. Okay.